crush on Zhang Yi. Exactly. Zhang Yi said that 5 of them attacked him, and he knew he had no chance of winning, so he grabbed the talkative boy and knocked out 3 of his teeth before losing. See? Zhang Yi says he gave the food, and if Xingtian doesn't fulfill his agreement, he won't hesitate to sacrifice himself to take Xingtian with him. With a serious look, my favorite protagonist says he hopes the Qingpu base can survive and do its part. Tian is confident in his strength and says that loyalty is the foundation of his life. Zhang Yi can trust him. When the time comes, he will do his best. Zhang Yi says he also doesn't want to see his former classmates get hurt. After this meeting, the Qingpu base members left, and our team also needed to go to prepare for the great battle. Uncle Yu does not rule out the possibility that these people may change their minds later. However, Zhang Yi is confident that Tian has not changed his character even after 10 years, and he will keep his promise. Xingtian does not need to fight against Zhang Yi, just do nothing, and in any possible outcome, he will have the greatest reward of all. After getting in the car, our villain acknowledges that they cannot rule out the possibility of them turning against them, so they must prepare for that too. Guys, I'm excited about this. Back home, Yang Mi informed that she had already mastered her power to make food, and he could come to taste it. Karen had already tasted the food and said it was delicious, but something tells me she might be talking about Zhang Yi's body. I hate the reason these people put a watermark on this part of the image. Liang came out of her depression and was there happy, so Zhang Yi asked if this was some effect of Yang Mi's food. I thought it was a joke, but the girl said yes, her food gives energy, removes debuffs, and increases the person's concentration. She gave him a bowl to taste, and before eating, Zhang Yi offered it to his kitten first to see if it was okay to eat it. By the animal's reaction, it seemed there were no problems, so he ate it. He found it delicious, and the flower kitten did too. After filling his stomach with soup, he asked if the food's effect disappeared over time. She hadn't tested this yet, but she already knew that freshly made food had a better effect. His goal now is to stock up on a lot of food made by Yang Mi in his warehouse, so he doesn't have to worry about energy. While our protagonist eats everything Yang Mi offers him at home, his enemies are preparing to launch the final attack against the most dangerous enemy they have. His assistant was worried because the flag fell from the mast this morning, which is a sign of bad luck. Of course, Honglian said this was just his superstition, but the boy insisted it wasn't just that. This is the first time since the apocalypse that they have gathered so many people. The fate of the Yangsheng base could change today. Despite his right-hand man's words, Honglian did not believe that a small shelter with less than 10 people could withstand all the city's armies together. Confident in the attack, she told him not to worry. The power of the 4 great families is absolute. However, the boy had a smart suspicion. Perhaps the other bases were not reliable. She laughed a lot at this statement, of course. They are not reliable, but everyone is the same, and everyone gets anxious with the chance to intimidate the weaker ones, especially targets so weak, but they draw so much attention. In this sense, he agreed, and indeed there was no remote chance of them failing today. The girl said he was just nervous. After they win, they will drink together, and he will understand the joy of victory. She might show him other joys. I think it would be a better celebration. Back at the most pleasurable shelter in the city, our villain was on the phone receiving information about the attack's timing from his infiltrators. Now that he knows it will be at 2 in the afternoon, Zhang Yi was prepared, and so was his group. The villain told teacher Liang that she could use this for now. It was a special weapon he obtained. They went to their most advanced positions. Zhang Yi knows his strength is as a shooter and strategist. His 4 combat generals went to the front line and followed his commands. Inside the mansion, his girls also did their part. Shokir is the best doctor. Yang Mi prepared the food to boost everyone's energy. Chinchin must be ready to control the automated weapons by Karen. If necessary, she must take down the enemies. Something changed inside Chinchin. The young girl was now excited about the possibility of taking down enemies with her own hands and being useful to her big brother. Now that everyone must go to their posts and prepare, he reminded them that the battle could end quickly or take a long time. Remember that their lives depend on it. After his commander's speech to his harem, he climbed to his strategic spot. In this place with bulletproof glass, he had a view of all areas with his rifle. He has plenty of ammunition for this battle. He ordered through the communicator for Chinchin to raise the glass. With his rifle, he could see his team positioned. Zhang Yi says there are 2 tasks to accomplish, and as soon as he succeeds, he will order them all to return to the shelter. At the expected time, the enemies appeared on the horizon of the flatland, 5 kilometers away. He could see the cars approaching. The leader of the Kaoyu base said that the other bases were delayed, so he would position the bomber trucks near the walls to attack at the right moment. Wei's assistant then commented that the defense system was laughable, as it was made of ice and certainly would not withstand the firepower of their heavy weapons. He added that this situation was advantageous for Wei, who possessed an ice ability. The more ice there was, the more power Wei had. The leader was confident and willing to eliminate Zhang Yi and provide employment for his men. His soldiers were preparing the car to fire against the weak ice wall when they were shot directly between the eyes. Before he could warn that they were being attacked, another soldier was shot in the heart. Wei realized this and alerted all the soldiers to the attack. But what could they do? when they couldn't even look towards the enemy base and were being hit. They were showered with bullets and couldn't figure out where the shots were coming from. The sniper tried to see over the walls, but there were no people. Where was the shooter? He searched for a few seconds, and then Zhang Yi sent a hint of his location. Wei, realizing that the soldiers were being eliminated, became worried and created a fog with his ability to hide his men. Zhang Yi, noticing Wei was creating an ice fog, recognized that the enemy had an ability similar to an otaku pillow lover. This did not concern him. Zhang Yi knew Wei couldn't maintain this ability for long. Wei too was aware that he couldn't keep this up forever and ordered his assistant to find the sniper, as his ability wouldn't last long and they would be exposed again. The assistant soon pointed in a direction and told Hai that the bullets were coming from the side of their shelter. The man was paralyzed, knowing that the sniper could hit from a distance of over 3 kilometers, which was terrifying. Wei then ordered his soldiers to retreat quickly out of the sniper's range. The soldiers used the snow to retreat. During the withdrawal, as soon as they left the snow, one of the vehicle's tires was hit, causing it to stop and get stuck in the snow. The soldiers inside the vehicle panicked and began to call for help on the radio, knowing that if the ice dissipated, Zhang Yi could see them again. The soldiers pleaded for help from their leader, fearing they would gain more holes in their bodies. Wei ordered his assistant to slow down to help the soldiers before Zhang Yi got them. The soldiers then exited the vehicle and ran towards Wei, trying to stay within the ice fog. Unfortunately, they began to be quickly taken down, as Zhang Yi seemed to have an aimbot. Wei wanted them to keep moving. Whoever was lucky would reach his car. The wounded had no chance and should be forgotten. Concerned for the lower-ranked soldiers, Wei's assistant decided to help them. He jumped from the car and stood in front of the soldiers, using his power to increase strength, much like when you use your favorite waifu. Despite being able to deflect the bullets due to his body's resistance, Zhang Yi's bullets were stronger than usual, causing him a lot of pain. Meanwhile, the villain continued firing until the enemies were out of his range. At this point, he realized they were waiting for the rest of the forces to launch a joint attack on the shelter. He communicated with his team, informing them he had killed dozens of enemies and forced a temporary retreat, but they would return when the rest of the forces arrived. Chun admired his leader's strength and wanted to know his KDA now. Zhang smiled and said it was a simple task, also stating that long-distance shooting was his strong point. If they breached the walls, they would have to fight. But our villain calmly said he could also use his divine power if they were closer, so it wasn't too bad for him. Meanwhile, Wei was shocked to be informed that their casualties exceeded 35. His soldier reported that they had lost a vehicle and 3 others were damaged. The leader's face showed great concern. It's not good to start losing like this. Zhang Yi's mutants are very powerful, and this could be a problem if they have such a skilled sniper. Wei then wondered if there were Epsilon-level mutants appearing in Tianhai City. The leader concluded that everyone has weaknesses, so Zhang Yi must have weak defenses. He then explained to his soldiers that once they were inside the shelter, the sniper wouldn't have a clear shot, but in his assistant's view, this sniper was too terrifying to attack directly. His right-hand man proposed they make a detour and approach the shelter from the opposite side to avoid the sniper's field of vision. Wei pondered for a moment and said he liked the plan, but they didn't need to hurry. First, they should find a place to hide temporarily. Jin was confused, questioning the point of hiding when Zhang Yi already knew where they were. Wei revealed his true intention, saying that Honglian must suffer from this sniper too. His ally should have the same losses as him. After some time, Honglian's troops arrived near the battlefield, and she was welcomed by our villain. Despite Zhang Yi's bullet speed, the werewolf managed to block many of them. The protagonist finally found someone interesting for him. The Twilight werewolf, realizing the sniper was so far away, was also surprised. After seeing the mutant's eyes, Zhang Yi resumed firing. The trigger finger was not as tiring as defending against so many shots, and soon the werewolf's body showed signs of injury. He knew he couldn't continue blocking for much longer. However, he was confident the soldiers had already prepared the missiles to attack Zhang Yi. Within seconds, the first missile was launched towards the shelter, which should have been enough to penetrate it easily. However, Zhang Yi had powers they didn't understand. Using his dimensional warehouse, he could send it to another dimension. The surprise quickly turned to panic when Zhang Yi fired back at them. One of the soldiers shouted for the others to launch the remaining missiles quickly, knowing that if they wasted time, they would all die. In a coordinated attack, they launched all the missiles simultaneously, confident in their victory. However, the missiles disappeared like before, leaving everyone perplexed. Zhang Yi then showed that their strategy wouldn't work and began firing the absorbed missiles back at them, causing massive destruction. The werewolf, having dealt with rifle bullets, now had to deflect missiles with his hands to prevent his team from turning to ashes. Within seconds, the missiles hit the ground away from the vehicles and exploded with tremendous destructive force. This was extremely exhausting for the werewolf, who began breathing heavily. Concerned for him, Honglian quickly ordered everyone to retreat to avoid further losses. The soldiers then began using smoke grenades to obstruct Zhang Yi's vision, allowing them to escape with their vehicles without being killed like rats. However, our protagonist was determined not to let them go without suffering losses, declaring that they were cowards, just like Wei's team. A shower of bullets rained down on the cars until they were far enough away. Wei, Hong Lian witnessed how Zhang Yi wasn't confident for nothing. After reaching a safe area, Hong Lian reflected for a moment. The enemy has a sniper with cheats and can repel missile attacks. She couldn't determine if it was one person or two people, but these two abilities, whatever they were equally terrifying. Finally, she understood why this team of a few people could face the Zishan base. Her thoughts were interrupted by Ting, who asked what they would do next. They had the firepower to bring down the base walls, but they were still 7 kilometers away and didn't know how to approach. Hong Lian responded that they shouldn't continue advancing. It would be better to let the other bases pass first, to draw the sniper's fire and exhaust his special abilities. She then called Wei and asked where he was. Wei replied that he hadn't arrived yet and asked if Hong Lian was already on site. The woman said she still had a long way to go, but would arrive soon. After hanging up the phone, both leaders lied to each other, wanting the others to arrive soon to experience the sniper's power as well. While the selfish and confident leaders tried to undermine each other to balance the losses before the guaranteed victory, Zhang Yi was taking the opportunity to increase his KDA. Chun suggested that their leader eliminate as many mutants as possible when he and Uncle Yu attack. Zhang Yi always gives his best and said he counts on them to do the same. Moreover, he said the mutants that have resisted so far can't be taken down with firearms alone, and against weak people, he doesn't even need to try hard. However, Zhang Yi said he deliberately let the opponent discover his counterattack ability to make them cautious about using heavy weapons. This way, the defenses could last longer, as without the use of heavy weapons, it's difficult to break through the 10-meter thick ice and snow walls. With a malicious smile, he said he eagerly awaited the arrival of the next group. Moments later, Zhang saw the next group arriving, the ice worshippers. He commented that 3 major forces were already on site, only the Qingpu subordinates were missing. Yu asked if Zhang Yi didn't say that the snow worshippers and Qingzhou base were helpers. If they also initiated the attack, should they be killed or not? Zhang Yi said they were allies, but if they approached the defense line, they should be eliminated all the same. Uncle Yu was eager to use the weapon he had found. Megumem arrived with her army of fanatics and ordered them to prepare to attack from behind. If Zhang Yi couldn't defend himself, he wouldn't be worthy, and then the snow sect would join the attackers to destroy him. Meanwhile, Tian was also heading to the battlefield with his team. He was intrigued by Zhang Yi's request to join forces with another group in the attack. Tian instructed his soldiers not to attack the shelter without his order, saying their role today was only to observe. Hong Lian received the information that the 4 forces were on site. According to the original plan, they would attack the shelter from 4 directions, with Tian attacking from the rear. Wei said that behind the base was a mountain. How could they attack? Tian explained that climbing the mountain would be easy with his wolf, and he would be able to surprise the enemy. Hong Lian warned everyone about the skilled sniper and the member of Zhang Yi's team who could redirect attacks. Wei confirmed, saying he lost many men that way. Hong Lian agreed that they would start the joint attack at 2:30. When the enemies began to approach the shelter, Qin called him to inform that an army was coming from the mountain. Zhang Yi realized it was Tian's men, and knowing that Tian was a coward, told her not to worry and focus on the main forces. As time passed, the joint attack finally began. The vehicles appeared again in front of him, and he was more than prepared. But this time, the attack came from multiple directions, making the situation very difficult. This led him to decide to reveal his trump card and use heavy weapons or cannons. He then communicated with Qin, instructing her to activate the weapons immediately. Qin, who seemed to have been waiting for this moment, pressed eagerly. Soon, cannons emerged from within the ice defense line in an unexpected manner and began firing dozens, even hundreds of bullets at all the enemies on site. The firepower of these weapons caused the vehicles to explode, creating total chaos for the enemies. Seeing what was happening, Megumem was terrified, as she had never seen these weapons before, and even Lian realized that the battle would be extremely dangerous. Hong Lian was also frightened. She knew very well that all the heavy weapons in Tianhai City were at the Xishan base. Seeing these weapons in front of her made her understand that Zhang Yi had managed to steal them. Hong Lian quickly composed herself and instructed her followers to disperse and continue advancing to break the defense line, as she believed it was just an ice barrier that could be easily destroyed when they got closer. She knew that if they could destroy the defense line, the invasion of the shelter would be much easier. As things heated up, Tian observed the situation intensify even more and decided to pretend he was participating in the battle. He ordered his followers to fire into the air. When a soldier questioned that there were no enemies flying, Tian hit him on the head and ordered him to follow orders without question, saying the clouds were dangerous. He told everyone that he was a man of his word. No one should attack Zhang Yi's men for real. If he lost, he would have no problem accepting it. On the battlefield, the fire intensified and bodies fell continuously. This led Hong Lian to communicate with the other leaders, saying that Zhang Yi's firepower was too strong and that she couldn't break the defense line. Wei suggested they cooperate to destroy the ice barrier. Hong Lian agreed, stating that if they managed to break the ice barrier, they could win the battle, as Zhang Yi was weak in close combat. Wei then proposed leading the attack on the defense line while Hong Lian and her soldiers covered him somehow. now. Hong Lian agreed and ordered her soldiers to try to block Zhang Yi's fire to give Wei a chance to destroy the defense line. Meanwhile, Wei got out of his vehicle, activated his ice shield ability, and advanced quickly towards the defense line without fear, as Hong Lian's soldiers were covering him from enemy fire. He was swimming under the snow, so it wasn't important to defend. I think so. Am I crazy? Within seconds, Wei reached the ice barrier and managed to destroy it with a single blow, thanks to the enormous strength of his ice shield. This happened in front of Otaku and Uncle Yu, who realized a fierce battle was imminent since Wei had destroyed the ice barrier and was ready to invade. Wei's soldiers began to enter the area with their leader's order to give more space for his men to pass through. Wei placed his hands on the ice barrier and completely destroyed it in seconds. Zhang Yi was surprised to see this, realizing that Wei's ice ability was much stronger than Otaku's pillow lover. He warned that they would start now, and then Wei felt the danger approaching. He only managed to save himself at the last second by moving his head to avoid the fatal blow. Even so, he did not escape unscathed, as the attack knocked him down, and he had to use his dragon sword. The blow severely wounded him, leaving him shocked. As the sword managed to pierce his ice shield, he sank into the snow to flee, but Otaku pulled him out of the ground with his ability, forcing him to break free from the ice and jump. At that moment, Liang quickly advanced with her sword, determined to be lethal. Her speed was so great that Hai couldn't dodge and was wounded. He confessed that he didn't know there was such a strong swordsman on Zhang's team and thought that invading the shelter would be easy after breaking through the ice barrier. Because of this, he decided to retreat alone, as destroying the ice barrier was his main objective, allowing the soldiers to approach the palace. Seeing the large number of soldiers, Liang decided to attack them without fear, despite Otaku trying to calm her down. Zhang Yi observed and knew she was angry, believing her students were her motivation, and ordered his followers to let her fight as she wished while they protected the barrier. Hong Lian began to spit fire, taking advantage that Zhang Yi's men were distracted by the ice barrier, and called her soldiers to invade the ice barrier without hesitation, led by the werewolf with his powerful defense. Chun started to create an ice barrier while the kitten, which now looked like a dog, screamed to deafen the soldiers and prevent them from advancing, giving Chun more time to create his barrier. At that moment, Uncle Yu took advantage of the distraction, grabbed his automatic machine guns, and started firing like Rambo, causing the poor soldiers to feel their body parts go numb. Meanwhile, Liang, consumed by fury, left the ice barrier and began to eliminate everything in her path. Suddenly she was surprised by an attack with powerful claws that approached quickly. Despite being shocked by the speed of the attack, she easily defended herself using her sword. The attack came from a furious werewolf who declared he wouldn't allow her to cut down his followers like vegetables. Facing a strong opponent, Liang activated her Super Saiyan transformation of rage and used all her strength.
Where'd the beat go?
The werewolf licked his lips, finding it interesting. Realizing he was facing someone as cold as an iceberg, he decided to attack, believing the best defense was offense. However, Liang remained motionless, waiting for the right moment to counterattack. When the opportunity arose, she did not hesitate and managed to cut off the werewolf's arm, leaving him perplexed by her strength. Liang didn't stop there, and with a piercing gaze, she made cuts so fast that the adversary was ready to become soup. Liang was secretly avenging her students. Yu was out of ammunition in his weapon when a strange mutant approached and wrapped around his body, immobilizing him. Floor used her ability to deafen people to affect both men. Yu, with his healing ability and pain tolerance, seized the moment and grabbed the rubber man. Before he could proceed, they heard an absolute order. Zhang Yi told everyone to retreat to the shelter. Liang, carrying her prize, returned, and everyone else did the same. In the distance, Zhang Yi observed the serious and motionless ice worshippers. Perplexed by this attitude, he ordered Chinchin to use firepower to shoot a volley at them. Several were hit until Megumem created a barrier. This made the girl angry, and she shouted that it was almost time to act. Megumem shouted for everyone to follow her to safety. Her men ran inside the base, where everything was covered by smoke. When Yu returned, he questioned whether they would abandon the upper floors of the shelter and go underground now. Zhang responded that there was no need to rush. The shelter's defensive capability was not easily broken. While they were talking, they were interrupted by the sound of a truck approaching. Looking, they saw an excavator, and Zhang understood why the enemies were confident in breaking through the palace defenses. Even so, this excited him. He then took grenades and began throwing them precisely at the soldiers and the excavator, managing to eliminate many of them with just a few grenades, saying that just because they broke the ice wall didn't mean they could advance further. He continued to throw grenades, eliminating many soldiers approaching the palace. When the excavator got closer, Zhang realized that it was driven by Wu Huairen. At that moment, he understood why the enemies were confident in breaking through the shelter's defenses. When Zhang tried to throw grenades to explode the excavator, the rubber mutant expanded his body to block the attack. Chen Jingguan had the elasticity ability, as the grenade bounced off his body. Soon after, Huairen began moving the excavator, towards the weak point of the palace, trying to make a hole in the wall. When Honglian saw that the excavator had reached the palace, she ordered all soldiers to attack Zhang Yi so he wouldn't see Huaren and try to attack him again. Our villain was in shock after hearing a message from the house's artificial intelligence, realizing the shelter was being invaded and the walls were about to collapse. He quickly asked the system how long it would take for the person to break through the walls, discovering that he had about an hour and a half. On the first floor, the sound of the excavator drilling the wall was very loud. Otaku asked his leader if it wasn't the right time to go underground. Meanwhile, Wei and Honglian were satisfied with the result. They were about to invade their greatest enemy's base. Although the losses were enormous, as long as they could obtain Zhang Yi's resources, it would be a victory. At this moment, where defeat seemed certain, the true plan of the ice cream sect was revealed when a member ran to the enemy soldiers and made them very warm, eliminating them instantly. This caught the leaders off guard. What was happening now? Wei and Honglian received a call from their soldiers, informing them that the ice sect members were attacking them. Upon hearing this, Wei began to understand that this war would be much more difficult than he had imagined. Looking to the side, he was surprised to see the girl flying and controlling 2 cars with her mental ability. Confident, Megumin launched them towards the enemies without hesitation. Of course, such an attack wouldn't be enough to hit anyone, and they quickly defended themselves. The extremely satisfied girl said that they too would pay today. She would send them to hell and free the city from them. Tell me she doesn't seem like it now. I can't be crazy to think so. Zhang Yi noticed the explosions among the enemies and was pleased, as this was a sign that the ice cream sect had decided to keep its word too, which was perfect for him. Inside the shelter, everyone was eating Yang Mi's special food. As soon as they recharged their energies, they quickly went out to help the ice sect members eliminate all the faction soldiers. Meanwhile, Tian was furious when he realized the ice sect had betrayed them and allied with Zhang Yi. He was very happy, as without this alliance, his men would have died too. After the death of most of the other major faction soldiers, Qitian's faction would become the city's greatest military force. On the battlefield, Tiha and the others were handling the long-range attacks thanks to their exceptional abilities, while Liang dealt with the close combat, eliminating the faction soldiers. Zhang Yi, with a wicked smile on his face, was confident in victory. He used his precision rifle to attack the strongest soldiers, who couldn't withstand the explosive power of the bullets, dying instantly. Honglian noticed that Tian still hadn't appeared and suspected he might have fled or even betrayed them. Wei said the worst would be if Tian attacked them, just like the ice sect did. Lian was desperate and ordered a retreat before they were completely destroyed. However, the retreat wouldn't be easy, as the ice sect members were in the way. Hong Lian drank gasoline and used her fire ability to clear a path, but the number of enemies was too great and she began to show signs of fatigue and exhaustion. Even so, she continued to fight with Wei's help, and they finally managed to reach the cars and escape, saving some of their soldiers. Among the saved soldiers was not Huaren, the excavator driver. He tried to flee, but Zhang Yi coldly killed him with a headshot. With the battle over, the ice sect, led by Megumin, began to celebrate the victory. Our villain realized these people didn't fear death, as they exploded themselves among the enemies. He concluded that he should avoid future problems with them, as any battle would be unfavorable, even if he managed to kill many. Zhang Yi called Tian and offered the remaining resources, but Tian said he was busy with something important and would come later. Zhang Yi went down to see his team and found them well. He asked them to rest, as they had won. Amid the celebration, only Liang was still angry. Zhang Yi tried to calm her down, saying the battle was over and they had avenged her students. Liang fainted from exhaustion, and Zhang Yi quickly caught her. Sure, she was crazy for facing an army head-on alone. He took her inside, realizing she was seriously injured, and asked Shokir to prepare the operating room quickly. After placing the woman on a stretcher, Shokir began to examine her. Zhang Yi then started talking to the ice sect members, declaring that the Zishan base and the surrounding area now belonged to him, and no one could approach without his permission. The girl accepted the terms and thanked Zhang Yi for helping to win this war. According to the agreement, no one who follows the snow faith except the missionaries would approach this land. The girl said on behalf of everyone that they hoped to coexist peacefully, and our villain agreed, saying he was also a pacifist. Zhang observed that the ice sect was numerous, even without being able to recruit due to restrictions from other bases. Now with freedom, the sect would grow exponentially. Despite this being a future problem for Zhang Yi, he had no other solution to win the battle against the military factions. He went to the bodies of the members with abilities and was surprised not to be able to absorb their energies. He decided to store the bodies until he understood what was happening. After storing the bodies, Zhang Yi asked his followers to come in and rest while he dealt with the wounded enemy army. His pet kitten jumped on his shoulder, happy to be by her powerful master's side. Meanwhile, far away, the soldiers of the Yangsheng and Chaoyu bases paused for a moment. Wei was furious because the ice sect and the Qingpu base had betrayed them. Honglian was also fuming with anger, saying that Tian had certainly received many resources in in exchange for his betrayal. When she picked up the phone to call and curse Tian, Wei interrupted her and asked her to calm down. Wei explained that only the ice sect had officially betrayed them. Tian hadn't attacked and had only observed from afar. Wei wasn't trying to justify Tian's actions, but knew he was a coward and avoided confrontations. Hong Lian, still irritated, responded that Tian broke the agreement and should pay for it. Wei then reminded her of their desperate situation with many soldiers dead. If they tried to confront Tian, they could end up in a battle that would destroy them completely. Before they could continue the conversation, they heard a loud noise coming from Tian's troops and their dogs. Hong Lian got out of the car, furious, and confronted Tian, asking why he was there now. The man calmly said that Hong Lian and Wei's base had many resources, and he only wanted a small part of them. Wei, irritated, said Tian could have obtained those resources if he had allied with them instead of betraying them. Tian explained that his base was weak compared to the others, and even if it expanded, it would be difficult to maintain control. So, he accepted Zhang Yi's offer and made a peace pact in exchange for 10 tons of resources. Now he was ready to accept food in exchange for a peace agreement with them. Otherwise, they would fight right now. Back at our villain's shelter, a party was underway. Zhang Yi told his followers to eat until they exploded like the men of the ice sect. Then he took food to Shokir, taking the opportunity to check on Liang. Shokir reported that the surgery was a success and that, being a person with special abilities, Liang would recover quickly despite the deep wounds. The terrible battlefield villain cupped Shokir's cheek and said she was important for her exceptional medical skills and no one could take her place. At the ice sect headquarters, the sect leader was waiting for Megamem's team to arrive. She reported that they had completed the mission and inflicted significant damage on the Kaoyu and Yangsheng bases. Yuan, happy, thanked her for the effort. However, Megamem expressed sadness for the loss of many sect members, including 2 high-level priests. Yuan explained that their deaths were heroic acts and that heroes never truly die. She was excited about the possibility of expansion now that the forces of the other bases were weakened. Yuan declared that she wanted to recruit everyone in Tianhai City into the sect. Back at the most frequented bunker in the city, the girls were enjoying some leisure time, each in their own way. After the battle, I can see a future between Otaku and Karen. Liang came down to get something, and Chun wanted to know if she was feeling better. Liang said nothing and withdrew. Karen said she needed time for her body and mind. Zhang stated that the Yangsheng and Chaoyu bases had been severely hit and there wouldn't be any major movements temporarily. While talking, Zhang Yi looked out the window and was surprised to see that the outside was clean, with no sign of the bodies that had been there the previous night. In less than 10 hours, everything had been removed. Zhang Yi picked up binoculars to check the area and was shocked to find the place deserted, with no living or dead person in sight. He wondered if changes in the world could cause the dead to turn into zombies, like in horror movies. To verify his theory, he quickly dressed and went out, not explaining the real reason to his followers so as not to scare them. He just said he was going to check something quickly. Outside, he found many footprints in the snow, from more than 1,000 people, all moving away from the palace. The lack of returning footprints indicated that no one had entered the area recently. In other words, no one had entered that area, but some people had left. This could only have a frightening explanation at the moment. The bodies had risen and moved on their own. Worst of all, shortly after, he heard a sound behind him, which terrified him. When he turned to see what was happening, he found nothing. It seemed the fear of zombies was taking over his mind, but he soon calmed down, telling himself he didn't need to fear, as he had already killed living people and could kill the undead too. He continued following the footprints for a while, realizing that they all moved away from the shelter. After some time, he returned home to tell everything to his allies. Before starting, he asked everyone to take a deep breath and relax to avoid panic, as what he had to say was something only seen in movies. He said that hundreds of bodies outside the shelter had disappeared, and there was no sign of them anywhere. The bodies might have risen and walked on their own. Shokir was horrified and asked if Zhang Yi was joking. Chun thought the villain had removed the bodies as a prank, but Zhang Yi insisted he was serious and was in shock himself. To find out what was happening, Zhang asked his followers with special abilities to prepare after eating, as they would investigate the footprints together. After eating, they took the car and followed the footprints in the snow until they reached an underground tunnel. They got out of the car and approached slowly, not knowing what to expect. Approaching the tunnel, they were surprised to see human footprints inside. Chun suspected that someone with the ability to control bodies was behind this. Liang suggested it was possible but unlikely, as controlling 1,000 bodies at once was almost impossible. Chun began to tremble and asked if they were dealing with zombies like in the movies. Zhang Yi replied that he hoped it was just that, as zombies would never be more dangerous than humans, especially in the cold, where they would group together and be easy to detect. Zhang Yi said, that if there were real zombies, it would be better than facing someone controlling the bodies. Yu finally recognized the place as the Jiwan residential complex, where he had lived for a while. He explained that the tunnel led to a subway station. Zhang Yi, surprised, said he now understood the situation. The tunnel had been dug a long time ago, and the zombies could have entered it or fallen accidentally. Liang, however, suggested that someone might be controlling the bodies and living in the subway to escape the intense cold. Yu, uncertain about what to do, asked Zhang Yi what he thought. If they entered the tunnel without caution and discovered someone was controlling the bodies, they would have to face thousands of zombies. Even if they were just zombies, they could be thousands of Tianhai residents, making the situation equally difficult. He realized that in both cases, the cost would be high and decided they should stay away from this place and avoid the situation. In Zhang Yi's old building, Lin Jian was visited by the old lady who could see the powers of the snow sect. All of them greeted the lady with respect. The old lady said that Lin Jian could control the power given to him by the snow god, the most honest man in the city, and his followers were still alive. The lady said that the leader of the snow sect wanted to see him immediately. The lady said they were close to creating a utopia, and that Lin Jian was worthy of being part of it. He should pack his things and bring his family if he wanted to. The leader of the sect highly appreciated his skills, and believed his abilities were indispensable. Lin Jian bowed and thanked her, praising the great snow god. He was willing to offer his strength to them, but before he could gather his things, the lady warned that the leader wanted to see him personally now. He wanted to wait for his wife and child to prepare to go as well, but the lady assured him that the sect would take care of that later. His wife informed her faithful and honest husband that it was not a problem, they would take care of her. He should go now and answer the deity's call. They then walked to the grand church in the village, where the representative of the snow god was waiting inside. Lin Jian was surprised to see that the leader was a woman. As if she could read his mind or his face was easy to read, the old lady said that the image of God is everywhere and depends on who sees it. He shouldn't worry about the details. Of course, he didn't question anything. He simply introduced himself. Greetings, esteemed leader. I received the leader's grace and survived until today. The great leader of the snow sect said it was true. He indeed possessed great power, as had been told to her before. From now on, Lin Jian was the priest of the Order of Snow. Lin Jian felt his blood boil, and then bowed. He said he would give his all, and hoped to learn much from the master. Pleased with the outcome, she asked Lin Jian to follow her to another place. This was unexpected for him. A tree stood before him. The trunk expanded and contracted gently, as if it were breathing. The great leader explained that this was the sacred tree she had learned to cultivate. It could root hundreds of meters deep into the ground, absorbing nutrients, and then bear fruit. These fruits were very important to them. Did he want to try one? Something told him it was like the apple of Eden, just like in the Garden of Eden, where Eve plucked an apple, bit into it, and offered it to Adam, who also took a bite. He ate the fruit, which was not white inside. The color reminded him of something from the bodies that had fed the tree before. Lin Jian felt his body light and full of energy. His hunger and cold disappeared. Yuan Kongye then told Lin Jian, "Your mission is to cultivate this sacred tree with your abilities. Only then can it grow stronger so we can feed more followers." Lin Jian gladly accepted the orders of his leader. He approached the base of the tree and cut his finger. Even though it was a small injury, his blood flowed like a river. The sacred tree eagerly absorbed every drop of his blood, glowing a vibrant green. Yuan healed Lin Jian's finger and warned, "From now on, you must use your blood daily to nourish the sacred tree. This is your glorious mission." Meanwhile, elsewhere in this frozen world, Zhang Yi's home was warm and full of life. Everyone was training hard to become stronger and healthier. Chun was trying his best, as he was the weakest. All his combat allies were monsters in their fields, so he returned to work, trying to replace fat with muscle. Our protagonist went to him and advised him that powers grow stronger the more they are used, but most importantly, he should have intelligence and focus on that. They should treat their powers like weapons. Strengthening their minds to control them is the most important thing. Chun was surprised by Zhang Yi's words. He said that pebbles thrown by an expert are more powerful than a shuriken thrown by an ordinary person. Now the otaku realized he had been too focused on the brute strength of his power in his body. Chun remembered that when his leader defeated Captain Feng before, who was a much stronger mutant, it was due to his cunning with his powers. His focus now was to explore the maximum potential of his abilities. A month passed, with lots of training in Zhang Yi's bunker and many apples in the snow sect. In the most unexpected place, something happened. In the ruins of Shijan base, something was about to break through the debris. A horde of zombies from the bodies left since the base's destruction. Back at the paradise of girls of all types, Qinshan was talking to Zhang Yi about Qingpu base. It seemed they continued to choose the safe strategy of defense. They had no intention of external invasion and were satisfied with their current territory. After the defeat in the Battle of the Five Armies, leader Wei Dinghai was severely injured and became more cautious, constantly retreating on the defensive line. This even allowed other armed forces to emerge in his territory. As for the Snow Sect, this faction could be considered the greatest beneficiary of that great war. Their members were rapidly increasing, possibly reaching tens of thousands of followers. Qinshan wanted to warn her leader about the dangers the other bases still represented. implemented, but he didn't think the same yet. He didn't see the snow sect as a threat to them. He also didn't believe their leader was powerful enough to move so many people. At that moment, Qinchin used her superior IQ to convince him of her argument. She said that nowadays, it is the end of the world, harsher than chaotic times. Usually, at this time, the world order undergoes significant changes. She said she knew her brother had no ambitions. He just wanted to live a stable and good life, but that didn't mean it was open. Other powerful people also thought so. She informed him that the Snow Sect would quickly become the greatest force in Tianhai without resorting to violence. When there are enough followers and the doctrine is widely spread, even the 3 major bases, or some people among them, could be assimilated. Qinchin was sure they wanted to build a new world order in the future, but our protagonist didn't believe it and found the idea ridiculous. Qinchin then insisted he believe her. This matter was definitely not a joke. People would try to grab any opportunity to survive in extreme situations. Zhang Yi said he recognized her arguments but still believed that just having many people wasn't enough to dominate everything. In front of the other modernly armed great powers, they still couldn't gain an absolute advantage. Qinchin reminded him that Yuan Kangye could awaken new mutants. Zhang Yi acknowledged that mutants were just more powerful humans, but few were really powerful enough to be feared. Qinchin's arguments and IQ were nullified because she just remembered that the little brother was very powerful now. He saw no threat because he was like a god. To our surprise, when the girl agreed with him, Zhang Yi changed his mind and recognized that he needed to stay alert with the Snow Sect. Their conversation was interrupted because he noticed something outside the base, a horde of zombies heading towards their bunker. He ordered Qinchin to warn everyone about it and gather in the living room to gear up for combat. He would take a look outside to see what the alarms were detecting. Qinchin wondered where those hundreds of people came from. For there to be so many people, could the other bases have united to attack Zhang Yi again? Uncle Yu soon appeared, asking what the current situation was. Observing from afar, our villain realized those weren't normal people, they were zombies. Liang said she could only believe it by seeing it, and even after seeing it, she didn't believe it. To confirm, she asked if they were really zombies, and dressed in the clothes of the soldiers from Zishan base. He acknowledged that they were, but it was very strange. The bodies shouldn't be frozen, they shouldn't be able to move like this. Qinchin, who had much more IQ than everyone else, said that a virus might have been released. Zhang Yi accepted this explanation, and remained calm because they were only scary, but shouldn't be powerful. He drew his weapon and said they should now go and make some dead die again. Karen got excited about it and asked for a weapon, as she could help with that. He handed her something simple, and told her not to accidentally hit any allies. Then each of them would use their way to attack. Ling with her blade, Zhang Yi with his finger. Karen challenged Chun to compete on who could get more kills. They used their heavy fingers, and the prize? You'll find out if you enjoy the video now. To our protagonist's surprise, after being shot in the head and falling, the zombies got up again. If bullets weren't enough, the short-range fighters attacked, and the zombies could dodge and resist a stab. Now the terror of a zombie, the enemy doesn't die and can run a lot, as we discovered in other movies, and as there are many at once, they corner their targets and can bite. Uncle Yu didn't have a sword, but his strength with a shovel could cut the zombies in half, yet even a half body continued to move. One of them went to Chun and Karen like a crazy titan. Zhang Yi then used his dimensional portal and sent them to his alternate dimension. That was surprising. His leader kept impressing Chun, but something impressed Zhang Yi even more. The zombies seemed to have reasoning and retreated upon realizing the danger of the bright portal. Zombies are all dead bodies that underwent mutation. They shouldn't have intelligence, but they can perceive danger and stop, which is totally illogical. Could there be strange people who can control zombies? Just like last time, the soldiers' bodies disappeared inexplicably. Zhang Yi thinks that if that's the case, everything makes sense. He takes out a tank and orders Uncle Yu and Liang Yue to listen to his command. When he counts to 3, the two should jump with all their strength into the sky. He gets into the tank and counts 1, 2, and at 3, he fires. A strong explosion warms their butts in the air, and then they run from the remaining zombies. Zhang Yi might not have had more ammunition in the tank because he decided to get out and try something else. With his equipment, which you can imagine what it does before he does, our protagonist fires with his flamethrower and hits the closest ones. Again, he is surprised. The zombies begin to retreat. Now he can confirm one thing: someone is definitely controlling these zombies from the shadows. When the manipulator behind the scenes realized it was difficult to defeat them, they chose to flee to preserve the zombies. Liang said she couldn't imagine how humans could control thousands of zombies at once. Besides, these bodies were all frozen and didn't die even when decapitated. She said that with such great power, this person could easily become the king of Tianhai City. After all, out there, most are just corpses. Everyone listened to the professor, and no one said that if there were mutants who could open portals to another dimension, why not this? Zhang Yi, in an attempt to understand more about these creatures, creatures tried to absorb the bodies. Once they were in his dimensional space, they didn't count as living beings, just things, or organic matter now. They continued to move even when in pieces, so Zhang Yi brought out more flamethrowers for them to do the same as he did. Later, they told the rest of the team what happened. Yang Mi said they should move because ghosts were possessing the bodies. Jaime asked her not to embarrass the redhead's reputation. It was the blondes who were dumb. Our protagonist revealed that someone was certainly controlling these bodies. The zombies knew how to avoid my metaverse door, and also knew how to flee. This is the behavior of an intelligent being. So certainly there was someone strange acting against us in hiding. They listened carefully, so Jokir asked the right question. Why did they come to attack this place? Qinchin reminded them that the only enemies they had were the Yangsheng and Chaoyu bases. So her question was, if they had this kind of power, why didn't they use it during that battle? Why wait until now? They couldn't reach a conclusion. Anyway, they should stay inside the shelter and not go out. It was very safe here, as the zombies couldn't get in. Qinchin should carefully observe other forces and see if this phenomenon occurred only with them, or if it was common in Tianhai now. Uncle Yu and Liang needed to carefully check their physical conditions, avoid being scratched by those things. They didn't know what that meant, being infected, but they said they would see if they were injured by those creatures. Jokir was leaving, and Zhang Yi said he had work to do. Before he could finish, she knew she had to research the zombies, and that was what she would do now. His brilliant girlfriend always knew what to do. He said they had to confirm if those things had a virus inside them, or if they were being controlled by strange people with distinct abilities. If it were a virus, it would become a disaster that would engulf the entire city of Tianhai. Tianhai means Celestial Sea City. In fact, our protagonist believed that if it were a virus, it could spread across the whole world. Now, if it were manipulated by someone, it meant there was someone in this city even more terrifying than all the previous enemies. This conclusion scared our brave waifu Jokir. They hadn't even had peace to have their child yet, and now the world was at greater risk than before. Like a gentleman, he told her not to think too much. No matter the world outside, what they needed to do was protect themselves. As long as the shelter remained safe, they could continue living peacefully. Later, he would test the zombies. Jokir was surprised to see a sample of this up close. It was really amazing. He reminded his fiancée that she had to be careful because it could still move, and they didn't know if it was a virus. She collected a piece of the creature's tissue and said she needed some time to analyze it all. That wasn't a problem. They had the power to defeat those creatures still. For a moment, Jokir didn't fear for them, but said that if they attacked other weaker bases, it would be a disaster, especially in organizations like the Snow Order. It would be very scary. The doctor's words were like a prophecy. At the Yangsheng base, zombies attacked with their thousands of numbers. Honglian luckily had the ability of fire and could attack a large area, but the number was too great for her to handle alone. One of her soldiers brought her a box containing something useful only to her. The woman took this strange liquid with a spoon, and upon ingesting it, she could perform Keiton as powerful as the Uchihas. After eliminating all the zombies and leaving a barbecue smell everywhere, she went to investigate to understand what those creatures were. She soon realized they didn't behave normally and ordered an investigation into how it happened. Could someone be manipulating them from behind? At the Rainy Morning base, or simply Yangsheng, zombies were also attacking in the thousands. The leader of this base, unlike Honglian, didn't have an advantageous ability against them. Wei Dai didn't understand where it came from or if it was an organization behind it. People at the Snowsek's base were warm around the fire, eating the sacred tree's apples. Meanwhile, the coldest snow creatures went to attack the Snowsect worshippers. In the village, screams of terror echoed everywhere. Creatures that only existed in fiction were now in the real world. Soon, the Snowsect soldiers engaged in combat with the zombies and quickly realized they couldn't defeat them, so they fled into the palace. The scared soldiers entered, and then Megumin finally arrived to do what she loved most: explosion. She also had fire abilities and had an advantage against those icy creatures. Megumin ordered Tongjian and Genglei to stay inside the church, not to leave under any circumstances, and to protect the church master and the followers inside the church. The others followed her command to defeat the zombies. Her soldier, who transformed into a werewolf but kept human hair that didn't match him, was so fast he could cut all the heads quickly. The other soldiers realized they could move without heads and started cutting them into smaller pieces. Half an hour later, he had various pieces of zombies exploded by their leader. She ordered them to take the bodies to that abandoned building. The leader gave the order to his subordinate, and the subordinate passed the order to his subordinates. Check for injuries. These zombies are very strange. They might be some kind of biological virus. They should be isolated and observed for a while, avoiding contact with others. He said these things were definitely not TV zombies. They had intelligence and knew how to retreat when losing. He was furious because this must be the work of the other bases. These people must pay for it. She didn't disagree with that, but first, they had to protect the people here from other attacks. Megumin announced announced that a new storm was about to begin. Zhang Yi received a call from his ally at Qingpu base. They were also attacked by zombies and lost over 100 people in the attack. His friend wanted to know where those things came from. Wasn't it something from Resident Evil? No one could explain what was happening. These zombies were very strange. Even if you cut their heads off, they didn't die, and it seemed someone was controlling them from behind. However, hearing him say that, Zhang Yi said he felt the problem was a bit complicated. They were separated by more than 100 kilometers, but both were attacked by zombies. If there really was someone capable of commanding an army of undead in hiding, it certainly wouldn't be just one person. Our protagonist's ears hurt from his friend's screams because he shouted that over 10 million people died in that city. If they all became zombies, they were done for. His friend commented that his Qingpu shelter wasn't strong enough to withstand many attacks. Our protagonist was scared of the possibility of him asking to use his base as well. Luckily, that didn't happen. Zhang Yi just recommended he be careful and get in touch if there were any updates. After the phone call, he soon saw that another wave of attacks was approaching. This time, they were prepared and more confident against them. Chun used his ability to create a thick fog around them. Zhang Yi suspected that among those zombies, there was a controller. Once their vision was blocked, the zombies lost their direction. Uncle Yu then set them all on fire, and after some time with the flamethrowers, they were reduced to burning barbecue. Joe Kier watched everything from the house window. The zombies had a virus that liked the cold and couldn't tolerate heat. After being burned at high temperatures, they lost their activity and ability to move. They kept setting fire to the zombies, and they started to flee. Zhang Yi observed everything and felt something strange about it all. Chun didn't notice anything but sensed that his leader had something to say. Zhang Yi said that yesterday they managed to deal with most of the zombie group, but today, the wave of zombies attacking was significantly larger in number than yesterday. This showed that the zombie virus spread quickly, and it was possible that those who died turned into zombies. It was scary to hear. He told everyone to go back inside, and he would explain the situation with the zombies. Back at home, he said that if it were so, sooner or later, one day the entire city of Tianhai would be completely dominated by zombies. Something worrying in his words. He said he couldn't imagine how they would continue living at that time. Chin pondered this, and then said that currently, this trend wasn't very evident. Otherwise, the other side wouldn't have mobilized only a few thousand zombies to attack us each time. However, if they couldn't find out the truth behind the appearance of these zombies, it would certainly become a big problem in the future. Karen lamented that it wasn't summer, as if it were, they would rot until they turned into bones. Our protagonist reminded them that the most frightening thing wasn't their number or appearance, but that they seemed to have a controller, so they weren't brainless monsters. Besides, he said it was very difficult to kill them. Only fire or dismemberment worked. That increased the difficulty of dealing with them. Chin then said that the most crucial thing was to deal with the manipulators behind them, right? It was easy to say, said Zhang Yi, but where would they find them? Whenever they reached halfway, they managed to escape. Discouraged by the forecast of things, our villain couldn't imagine how they could deal with it. Everything was full of uncertainties, impossible to deduce with common logic. None of them had a solution, but Joe Kier said she had a guess. In the past 2 days, she had been researching the zombie bodies and discovered something very strange, resembling an ancient virus. It could withstand extreme cold, even surviving at 100 degrees Celsius, and invade the nervous system of living beings to control their bodies. But it didn't fit the modern definition of a virus in biology. Its structure should be between a virus and cells, but it could control and reproduce in the host's body, like a virus. I bet everyone agreed with our protagonist in asking her to speak more simply. No one here understood those things. In other words, she said that after the apocalypse, under the influence of gamma rays, biology was redefined. For now, it was better to call it a zombie virus. Simply put, it reflected part of the habits of fungus colonies and even animals living in groups. When zombies were in the middle of a group of corpses, their actions were consistent and even manifested some intelligence. But the corpses studied in the lab were even losing their reproductive instinct, and their reactivity was worsening. Joe Kier said she suspected the control of this virus could be similar to a biological population, where viral mothers could control them in some way. She meant that their viruses could communicate with each other, and the viruses had the basic consciousness to control the bodies. Zhang Yi then asked if that meant that once the Matrix was killed, all the infected zombies would die too. It was hard to say, but that explained their actions with some level of wisdom. Our villain said he understood a bit now. If they noticed that in the past 2 days, the zombie attacks seemed fierce, as if they had some level of intelligence. In reality, the zombie group's combat strategy was quite childish, always choosing to retreat after part of the zombies died. That feeling was like that of a 2 or 3-year-old child learning to talk, only able to go word by word slowly. Liang said she began to understand where he was going with this. They were probably mutants after human death, or became hosts after a mutant virus took over the human body. This made more and more sense to Zhang Yi. After all, to become a mutant, one had to be on the brink of death. It was possible for someone to become a mutant on the verge of death and end up dying for good. Then that person could be infected with the virus and make the virus mutate as well. They had to pay attention to every detail detail of their actions to discover how to deal with them. Their first step was to quickly clear the area around the zombies. Their presence here was dangerous. Liang said they had another problem. If a corpse became intelligent, how at the same time was it causing havoc in different areas of Tianhai? He had no ideas or theories, but Qinchin said they knew the closest zombie activity area to us was the subway station. The Celestial Sea City subway connected all places and could take them to any area. Even the zombies used the subway to move between different regions. Zhang Yi recognized that this might explain why the number of bodies they faced was the smallest. This place was located in a remote area, and only the secondary subway line passed through there. He ordered Qinchin to continue monitoring the other bases. Meanwhile, they had to find a definitive solution for those things. Of course, she would follow the orders perfectly. Now, as for the survival of others, it wasn't something they could worry about. If they didn't want to take drastic measures, then keep fighting the zombies. Our villain now relaxed, especially the Snow Sect followers, whose numbers were rapidly growing, becoming a threat now. They having some casualties in this crisis wasn't a bad thing for our protagonist. Sometime later, the zombies now came at night. This was different from before. The whole team was prepared to face them as always. But was it a coincidence that daytime fighting was easier for Zhang Yi, and they decided to come at night now? He poured fuel around the bunker, and intelligently, the zombies didn't advance over the dangerous material. This was bad because they were learning, but good because it confirmed the theory that they could learn. Now he needed to check one more thing. This time, they had to kill all the zombies, leaving none behind. Zhang Yi mounted his feline ride. He would surround the zombies from behind so they couldn't escape. That meant only the two of them would be the front line against the zombies. Uncle Yu said that with so many live targets, it was a good time for him to practice his aim. The otaku prepared his jutsu and started freezing the zombies. Liang performed Getsuga Tensho to attack, and in this way, they began to face waves of zombies on the front line. Zhang Yi ran to surround them. When positioned, he began helping the frontline group with his rifle. If he hit the joints, he could immobilize many of them. His mount could also attack with its enormous body, making a bowling game more fun. Even after a while with him attacking from behind, the zombies didn't focus on attacking him, who was alone. The kitties surrounded small groups to corner and defeat them. After a long battle, all were defeated, and his group went to their leader. After this wave of tests, Zhang Yi concluded that the King of the Dead wasn't among the horde of undead, but could still control their movements. The main goal of the zombies that came wasn't to destroy them, but to gather their information and then take it back to the King of the Dead. If they continued like this, completely mastering their combat tactics, the real great army would probably come. Zhang Yi said they would have to act now and not just stay on the defensive. This zombie would help them do that. He would go back to the subway and they could investigate. Liang questioned if his idea was to investigate the situation in the subway's depths and then find an opportunity to destroy the zombie's lair. If there were a suitable opportunity, they had to do it. Zhang Yi knew the best defense was offense, and to show his point, he attacked the fallen zombie. This gave him the chance to take the initiative and flee. Now they just had to wait and see. Sometime later, he turned on his TV connected directly to the camera on the creature's eye. It was like a real zombie movie now, and as Zhou Kier and Qinchin predicted, they were all in the subway. The otaku was terrified of thinking that if he died, he would become a zombie now. That was scarier than simply dying. Qinchin reassured her friend, saying that wasn't a certainty. To become a zombie, one had to be contaminated with the virus, and they didn't know if they were. Zhang Yi commented that even if they tried to collect all the bodies of the dead to prevent them from becoming new zombies, it would be impossible to collect 10 million people. Their focus was to find and defeat the King of the Undead. While he was talking, something caught his attention. A zombie stood out in the crowd. What was that alien? An avatar? And something scarier that gave me chills. As the narrator, I was scared when the creature knew it was being watched and looked at the camera. Our protagonist almost soiled his pants too. However, this also showed that the assumption was correct. The King of the Dead was there, and they found it. But how could they kill the King of the Dead? There were so many zombies underground. If they all went armed to clean up, who knew how long it would take to clean up? If their plan was to eliminate the King of the Undead, Chun, terrified, questioned how they could defeat those things in the subway, with millions of zombies in an enclosed space. Qinchin said that besides that, the subway spread throughout Tianhai City. The Corpse King was smart and would flee when it sensed something was wrong. They had several difficulties, but Zhang Yi was firm and said they would have to do it. No matter how many there were, it wouldn't be a problem, but they had to prevent them from escaping, so they had to start with the subway. Liang suggested starting from a subway exit location to prevent their escape from one side. The goal was only to kill the King of the Undead. If he didn't escape, everything would be fine. As for the other zombies, there were many ways to eliminate them. Uncle Yu agreed they had to act, either giving a suggestion or going with this plan. The leader's order was to prepare. Tomorrow, they would act. Chun, despite being the most fearful, was right in questioning if Zhang Yi wasn't rushing into enemy territory without more information about the place. However, Zhang Yi had reasons they didn't know yet to be confident. All they needed to know was that if necessary, our villain could get them out of the subway. He was putting their lives in danger recklessly. Chun was curious and asked him to share his secret for that, but Zhang Yi wouldn't do that. Liang accepted this argument. They didn't need to worry anymore then. If that was the case, Yang Mi prepared delicious meals that would invigorate everyone's energy for tomorrow. Meanwhile, at the Yangsheng base, Hong Lian defeated another zombie attack with her abilities and soldiers. She knew they couldn't continue just standing and defending their base. One of her soldiers brought information that all zombies were defeated, and the number of soldier and slave casualties was 67. This information made the woman more convinced they needed to act now. Her assistant questioned if that meant they had to go on the offensive. Hong Lian realized the zombies' actions were clearly controlled by someone. They needed enough information to know how to completely resolve this crisis. But that was very risky, said her right-hand man. Investigating immediately could result in a total disaster for the army. It would be better to observe a little more. Maybe other forces had a solution to the problem. Hong Lian, on the other hand, told him to look at the size of that horde of corpses. She didn't believe they would have an easy time, especially the snow sect. Those fools gathered over 10,000 people, as if they were preparing a lunch for the zombies. Hong Lian stated they couldn't depend on anyone. They barely wished for their death. If they wanted to rely on something, they had to rely on themselves. She decided so. Let Donghu take 2 strangers and 30 elite soldiers to investigate the zombies' lair. Meanwhile, at the snow sect, Megaman was informed that in the last attack, the number of dead exceeded 1,000, and there was a possibility that those people would become new zombies. Additionally, she was informed that new followers were experiencing a crisis of faith and might give up the sect, which was bad for the morale of the other followers. Megaman said that in the past few days, her right-hand man had organized some people to spread messages among the followers. Simply tell them that almost all survivors in the outside world were massacred by zombie. In other words, without the protection of the snow cult, they would have no chance against a zombie attack. It was better to die in faith and have salvation than to die outside in sin and become a zombie. Megaman says it is better to tell them that the other bases have been annihilated by the zombies, with more than half of the people in the bases already dead. Her subordinate is pleased with the idea, seeing it as a good way to motivate the followers. At the viral bases, there are piles of bodies. Even if people are safe behind their walls, no one here can know for sure. All they can see is the pile of bodies. Megaman instructs them to spread this information, explaining that the reason they are still complaining is that they are not sufficiently devoted to the snow cult. This way, they will understand that joining the snow sect at this moment is something to be happy about. Her subordinate ensures that this information is spread and praises the intelligence of the great priestess. Meanwhile, we return to our villains. They head to the entrance of the subway tunnel for the mission to eliminate the king of the dead. Zhang Yi assures that if they manage to find him, he guarantees he can defeat him. However, all this must be done with personal safety as a priority. They should not get excessively involved in fighting the hordes of the undead. There is no point in killing many of them. Zhang throws the light stick and sends Uncle Yu ahead, since he is the team's tank. Descending the stairs, the scene is chaotic, but there are no enemies, so they can advance. For this mission, the Four and the Flower Kitty came along. What they see is horrible, but they have no choice but to move forward. Zhang Yi says the instinct of zombies is just to feed, not to infect dead bodies to become zombies. Chun, who understands this matter, says that they seem to have a huge appetite. He mentions that in Tianhai City, there are more dead than living. Chun also recalls that Tianhai City had over 10 million inhabitants, hoping they turn into lunch for them and not more zombies. Chun also wonders what the zombies will do when they run out of food. Will they migrate to other cities? Our villain says that it doesn't matter what happens. What matters now is eliminating the king of zombies to ensure there are no zombies around the shelter. As they run quickly, the Flower Kitty senses a presence. Something is lurking around them. Teacher Liang throws a knife and perfectly hits the creature. When they approach to see what it was, they discover it was a rat. Simply a rat the size of a dog, or rather, a rat larger than a cat, which shocks Chun, as he is already a larger than average human. Our protagonist, Zhang Yi, says that since the kitten has grown to a gigantic size, it's not strange. He said he expected a rat could also be a mutant. He said that previously the bodies they saw were all eaten by rats, and were in pieces. Shou then says that with so many bodies eaten that way, there must be a bunch of rats around here. Zhang Yi then says they are getting closer, and soon in the corridor, thousands of rats start coming out of the doors. They all had flamethrower equipment to fight the zombies, but they are also useful against the rats. They make a barbecue of zombie rats and prevent them from advancing, so they can continue like this. They came here to hunt the zombie king, not to fight rats. So to show off his new powers, Zhang Yi opens 2 giant dimensional doors, and through these 2 doors, on both sides of the corridor, the rats enter them. Teacher Liang is impressed. His power has become even more incredible. He says he has been continuously studying the use of the dimensional portal. After the last battle, he managed to use 2 portals simultaneously. The teacher teacher, seeing the results, says it is very convenient. With the rats gone, they continue their way inside the subway. As they run while looking at the subway maps, they wonder what the relationship between these rats and the zombies is. Are they allies, or do the rats hunt the zombies? Zhang Yi says it doesn't matter. Now all they have to do is find the zombie king. After some time, they find a gathering of zombies. Maybe this is where they will meet. The undead wander through the subway and don't even bother to look back. In fact, they can't look, only feel. Uncle Yu approaches and says they are sleeping. Zhang Yi then says that since they are zombie hosts, when they don't receive orders, they hibernate because they spend a lot of energy moving around, even though they are corpses. Uncle Yu suggests burning them all while they sleep. As they observe, our protagonist says that they must maintain some biological characteristic that forces them to sleep. Maybe if they make noise, they can wake them up. And to confirm this information, one of the zombies wakes up. Soon, all the others wake up with its noise and look at our protagonist. They madly charge at the group, so Zhang Yi uses his dimensional portal to suck them all into another dimension. The creatures demonstrate intelligence. They stop in front of the portal and don't cross it because they know it's dangerous. What they do is scream to attract the attention of the other zombies to the place. Zhang Yi then brings back the flamethrowers and gives the order to burn them all, no longer needing to worry about being discreet. Uncle Yu and Chun start setting fire to all the zombies. Soon, the creatures start to flee because they react to danger and know they need to run. While chasing the group, Teacher Liang says the giant rats are still chasing them. She doesn't need to worry because by finding the location of the zombie king and eliminating him, the rat problem will also be solved. While chasing the zombies, throwing fire ahead, they say there is a risk the zombie king has fled upon discovering their presence. Anyway, Zhang Yi said to keep going. Meanwhile, in another part of the subway, a team of 3 people encounters a gang of giant Mickey Mouse-like creatures. A bald mutant with fire fists manages to destroy several of them. I don't know what's more efficient, fire fists or those toys in their hands that haven't even been used. The leader says they should move on and get the information. This is the group sent by Hong Lian to investigate the enemy. The group moves on. In the subway, they find an order of frozen zombies. The creatures which were asleep sense the approach of warm flesh and wake up. They quickly look at their prey and start attacking. The bald man, terrified, shouts for everyone to retreat. He tries to stop the creatures from advancing with his fire fists and tells the others to run as fast as possible. He said he would delay them. They must escape as quickly as possible. However, one of them asks what that is. The creature, which they didn't know what it was, approaches inexplicably and transforms the 2 soldiers into 4 soldiers half their size. The only one alive now is the bald man with the hot hands. Now, back to our main group. Chun says this complicates things. They couldn't find the exact location of the zombie king, so how will they know where to go? The place they are now has several exits, but our protagonist says he has a hunch. Zhang Yi said this thing is a short distance from them. Then, in the subway tunnel, a little ahead, we see a creature appearing. Only its shadow appearing first, and then the human zombie dinosaur appears. Uncle